I have over 6,000 hours in Counter-Strike, face it level 10, 25k Premier, and strong individual stats. Yet for almost all of CS2, I've played with Follow Recoil turned on. And every time people notice it, I get the same reaction.
I think maybe we get the jump on the they play heavy towards
He's using Follow Recoil!
Is that
What?
To which I just ask one question. Give me one argument against Follow Recoil that isn't just preference. And usually the answer is, well, if it's so good, why don't the pros use it? And see, that's the problem. The setting is universally hated by the community for being bad and noob, but none of the arguments explain how it's bad. And after roughly 3,000 hours of using it in CS2, I think it's the most underrated improvement tool in Counter-Strike right now. So let's start with the argument that convinces most people to never try it. So the most common argument is that Follow Recoil makes the screen shaky, and that is true. Congratulations, you have figured it out. A static crosshair looks cleaner because it stays in the center while the recoil happens somewhere else. The only difference is that the crosshair does not show you that movement, so when you try playing with Follow Recoil on for the first time, it just feels overwhelming because of the increase of visual chaos. So what happens is, people turn it on, immediately feel uncomfortable, and assume that discomfort is evidence that the setting doesn't work for them. But every major setting change feels wrong at first. A new sensitivity feels uncomfortable, a new resolution feels uncomfortable, a new crosshair feels uncomfortable. But where with changes to these settings, most people push through the uncomfortable phase and eventually get on the same level or better than before, most players do not test Follow Recoil long enough to even get to that point. Instead, they use it in one deathmatch, dislike the shakes, and turn it off going, Valve could have worked on something useful for once. So yes, let's just acknowledge that Follow Recoil will feel weird at first, because there's an adjustment period. So now the question becomes, do you actually get better after pushing through the adjustment period? Well, one of the fastest ways to get used to any new setting is deathmatch, and honestly, I don't like warming up on Valve DM servers anymore, because literally half the players are bots farming XP for armory, with the other half being beginner players. So before competitive games, I usually jump into XPLAY.gg, as it only takes a couple of clicks to play against real skilled players. Normally I start with 5 minutes of deathmatch just to get my arm and fingers warm up, and then I'll do 5 more minutes of duels to make sure I'm used to the enemies counter-strafing, donk sliding, and just using different movement tricks to make themselves harder to hit. And finally, if I still don't feel ready, I'll play some retakes to simulate in-game situations. And that's the main thing I like about XPLAY. It doesn't need to be some long aim routine. The boost in performance I get from a 10-minute warm-up is actually insane. I view it as an almost instant way to make sure I'm ready to carry my team if needed. And for those of you who are not a wealthy shake, there is one more awesome feature. You can warm up using any skin and also add stickers, charms, basically make your dream loadout. I was actually really excited when XPLAY reached out to me because I use their service daily. Also, all of the game modes are completely free. So if you want to try out Follow Recoil, I think it's a great idea to first finish this video and then go try it out on XPLAY's servers. But first we still have to tackle probably the strongest argument against Follow Recoil, and that is that pros do not use it. And that sounds super convincing because your job as a pro is to, well, play as good as possible, so if Follow Recoil gave a real advantage, surely they would use it. The only problem with this argument is that it ignores how professional players develop their mechanics. Most of them started playing Counter-Strike 10 years before enabling it was even an option, and spray control is so deeply ingrained in their muscle memory, with literally tens of thousands of hours reinforcing that system. So when a pro tests Follow Recoil, they are not comparing two settings from a neutral starting point. They are comparing a familiar system built over 10 years that allow them to be top 0.1% in the world when it comes to spray control, against a new system that immediately disrupts their comfort while providing microscopically marginal gains, if it even works out. So in this case, switching has a huge cost for minimal potential potential gain. But again, it doesn't prove that Follow Recoil is bad. It doesn't prove that switching is pointless if you've played since CS 1.6 days. It simply proves that the benefit of switching is just not large enough for somebody with an already elite spray control. But just because a setting won't help somebody already at the top, doesn't mean that it won't help you go from good to great. In fact, the further you are from an elite spray control, the more the setting will help you, and let me explain how. So as you might have figured out already, Follow Recoil gives immediate feedback to where your bullets are going. If you pull down too hard, you see it. If you don't pull down enough, you also see it. And that really shortens the feedback loop. And this matters a lot because skill improves through feedback. And after around 3,000 hours of using Follow Recoil, I've ingrained in my subconscious how to immediately adjust as soon as the crosshair is not on the target. And again, we're talking about real life situations here that can be up-close movement-based gunfights, where you have to not only account for recoil, but also for movement-based inaccuracy and track the opponent precisely on top of it. And because modern CS has so many of these chaotic, fast-paced fights, Follow Recoil really helps to make sure that your crosshair is always on target. So, we've arrived at the actual trade-off. Static crosshair gives visual stability, Follow Recoil gives visual information, and for me, that information is more valuable, because it also immensely improves my consistency. Back in the CSGO days, I had around 3,000 hours, and I would constantly drop 30 bomb games only to bottom frag the next one. Nowadays the recoil doesn't catch me off guard after the 10th bullet, and I'm never in these spray and pray gunfights anymore, where I've completely lost control but just keep committing to the fight. I can instantly tell when the crosshair has drifted off so far it would be near impossible to control, and just simply reset my spray and try again. It is abundantly clear to me that Follow Recoil has massively improved my spray and general time to kill, but just because I'm a freak doesn't mean you have to be. So should you use it? Look, to answer this question, just go in a bot map and do some AD crouch strafes while spraying bots with Follow Recoil on. I can almost guarantee you that after the initial 10 minutes of doing this, you will already be on the same level as before. You'll also learn just how much run and gunning you can get away with. I constantly get kills doing drive-bys and fadeaways, especially with SMGs, and that's where most people will see a huge improvement. Since SMG sprays tend to be more chaotic and poorly memorized, I mean, just look what happens when you enable Follow Recoil and jump around with the MAC-10. It literally becomes a laser beam. But it doesn't mean that Follow Recoil is automatically going to be better for everyone. It has a real adjustment period, and some players may find the movement distracting even after testing it properly. But I sincerely believe that at least 90% of the player base would benefit from at least trying it. Generally, the newer you are to the game, the more it will help, and if you don't want to go all in and enable it for all weapons, you can simply make a toggle key with these console commands. Try it out with SMGs first. And that was my whole point with making this video. Not to prove that Follow Recoil is somehow superior in all aspects to all players, but to prove that it deserves a second chance from the community.